Welcome back guys to another Kengan What If battle. Today we have Cosmo vs Okubo. If you're new to the channel or haven't subscribed to this new channel, consider doing so and joining the Discord to talk more about Kengan greatness, and I hope you enjoy. First I'll go over one thing, and that's the mini battle they had during the Annihilation tournament. This battle was for Cosmo to hold his position as the affiliated fighter for Nishitoni Security Services, probably butchered that name. He was heavily injured and was able to get Okubo into a hold pretty fast, in turn giving him the win. But in my opinion, this wasn't a real battle or a real fight by no means. It kind of looked like Okubo was giving him the win as a sign of respect, or just feeling bad for him, something along those lines. Okubo wasn't serious whatsoever during the fight, and I'll go over the individual stats now and won't really be considering this as a 100% guarantee that Cosmo will win the fight. So Cosmo, also known as the King of Stranglers, his current age in Omega is 21, with it being 19 in Ashura. His Kengan wins is 24 wins and 1 Kengan loss, which was against Tokita Oma during the Annihilation tournament. His history as a child, Cosmo getting into strides, getting into street fights majority of his time, and he pretty much lives for fighting. He doesn't really have anything else that he really cares about apart from fighting, and that's his whole drive going into that fighting. And one big aspect of him is he doesn't really give up. You need to kill him or knock him out to defeat Imai Cosmo. During the Ashura time span, he was a grappling / submission specialist, but over the 2 years he's been working on his striking mainly, being able to defeat other Kengan fighters with strikes alone, as shown with the first chapter of Kengan Omega. And now I'll go over his power and abilities. So considered a fighting prodigy, with him being one of the youngest fighters in the Kengan Annihilation and Kengan as a whole in the whole Kengan series. Cosmo is a jiu-jitsu fighter with a high level of agility, with that being one of his major attributes, giving him the advantage over many of the other fighters. This is mostly due to his small and lightweight build, with him being, I think, one of the lightest characters in the whole series, with him being 68 kilograms total, with him also having an extremely high physical and mental endurance, as demonstrated when he tanked multiple punches from Adam, who is a pretty much power based fighter, doesn't really have much technique, just goes for his punch, and is able to tank enough blows to get him into a submission and win, and then survive or mentally survive the torture against Akira, and in turn giving him an adrenaline, or some people call it a plot armor boost, to defeat him in that. And then after all those injuries, he was still able to have a decently good fight against Tokita Oma, who was also injured, but in my opinion not as much as Cosmo. His most dangerous technique is known as Zone, a technique that is said to be only unique to Cosmo. This technique involves discerning the 0.1 second interval when the opponent is completely focused on the attack. Once the time is discerned, Cosmo then proceeds to move into the opponent's blind spot and put them into a hold without them really noticing. The technique makes the opponent think that Cosmo has disappeared into thin air until he puts them into a hold and wins the fight. And with this technique, he has defeated many opponents with absolute ease, and this is where he gets the title of the Genius. Throughout the Annihilation tournament, he's called a genius by many of the other fighters, with him being able to use this zone with another ability that he's exceptionally good at, which is his foresight. After his match against Akira, Cosmo began to develop the ability to predict his opponent's moves in a way that was similar to Canada, who is probably the best when it comes to foresight, next to Kroki, Gensai, and those other beasts. Cosmo can only predict up to 1 to 2 moves ahead, in comparison with Canada, who can predict up to 7 moves ahead, which is absolutely insane. But combining this with the zone and his pretty decently fast reflexes, he has the ability to pretty much go from a losing fight to an instant win with no effort at all. When it comes to grappling, he's probably the best, or if not top 3 when it comes to grappling in the whole Kenganverse. And when it comes to chokes, he's, in my opinion, he's the best in the whole series. Some named chokes that he used during the Kengan series is the arc choke, leg scissors, python hold, rear naked choke, and many triangle chokes. And he has the ability to combine the zone, his foresight, into these traits with relative ease at all. But that is his only real weapon during the Annihilation tournament, with his striking or pretty much punching power not being that good. Adam does state he has pretty decent power for his size, but still it doesn't really come into a factor considering the power of many of the other fighters. And then while in Omega, as I mentioned before, he was working on his striking over the 2 years, being able to defeat opponents that are bigger and heavier than him with relative few blows, which is some strikes showing his genius element and how good he has gotten over the 2-year time skip. Now talk about Okubo, also known as the King of Combat. his Kengan wins is 0 and 1 Kengan loss, with his Kengan loss being against the Fang Kano Agito during the first round of the Annihilation Tournament. His history involves him becoming world champion or elite at different types of combat, hence the name the King of Combat, with him being one of the most all-around fighters, and his biggest advantage when it comes to fighting is being able to switch seamlessly into these different styles one by one. He'll go from grappling to striking to all these different martial arts, and with him being able to use them at a top level, only the likes of Kano Agito can best Okubo when it comes to overall stats as a whole and how good he is at each different combat. You could argue that some fighters like Kuroki Gensai with his immense knowledge could outclass him, but as a whole, I think Kano Agito and Okubo are the best all-around fighters or overall fighters in the whole Kenganverse when it comes to overall stats. And for Omega, we can assume that he's improved quite a bit as well, as he's been selected as a fighter for Team Pokemon. We haven't seen him fight yet, but he's been selected as a fighter or one of the 13 fighters. Now I'll talk about his power and abilities. So Okubo is a MMA champion with a record of 26 win out of 26, not a single opponent making it to the final round against him. With immense strength and endurance, Takeda Omega clearly recognized that Okubo was one of the most powerful in the whole series. He's also a grappling specialist from the time when he became a wrestler, learning grappling, becoming a top tier at that, and continued to hone this throughout his years. Many of his other martial arts, he just got to the pro level or got to high level and then doesn't really focus on them, while grappling he stayed focused on that and implementing it with his other techniques. So one of the best overall fighters. Now I'll go into the what if battle. So if they were to fight during the Annihilation Tournament of the Kengan Ashura time span, this is how it would go. It'll start off with Okubo. As we saw, he's fighting against Fang. He can change from style to style and just completely fuck with people and just destroy him. When it comes to on the ground, even though Okubo is a grappling specialist and has a big weight advantage, with him being 116 kilograms, with Cosmo being 68 kilograms, he has a pretty significant weight advantage and size overall advantage, which may come down to aspects on the grappling. But when it comes to grappling or on the floor, due to Cosmo's like overall insane zone and foresight ability and his knowledge of chokes and everything, I think if they go to the ground, that Cosmo has the advantage in that regard. So if it's on the ground most of the fight, I think Cosmo will win. When it comes to sheer speed, Cosmo has the advantage as well, but when it comes to power and striking during Ashura, I think Okubo has the advantage. So if Okubo is able to keep Cosmo away and keep switching up his style where it doesn't allow Cosmo to get him into a hold, I think he'll be good. But even if Cosmo does get him into a hold, Okubo, I would say, has enough strength to probably get out of 2 of those holds, as shown with Okoro being able to, tank his way through one of Cosmo's hold until he went like super adrenaline rush plot armor crazy mode, the way he finished the fight, and unexpected, and after all the torture and the boost, all that had given him the advantage. And with Okubo's knowledge of grappling, being a specialist at grappling, well, I think he would have a lot more knowledge than many of the other fighters to get out of many of these holds and to counter many of these holds, with it leading to Cosmo struggling a lot. And if the fight stays on the feet, I think Okubo will win. So as a whole in Ashura, I think Okubo will take a lot of damage due to the way Cosmo will need to fight with him, using his speed, going for punches. He can do some damage, but he's not going to be able to finish the fight with sheer punches and strikes alone against Okubo during Ashura. So with that, I think Okubo will be able to win in Ashura from pretty much out-mighting him or out-physically beating him, with him having all these different styles to go from, the ability to change and to go to a counter to Cosmo in any chance he has. He will most likely take a lot of damage, but while saying that, Okubo could very well lose. Cosmo could enter the zone, enter insane foresight, have adrenaline boost again, and just choke out Okubo without him even noticing. Okubo does get extremely serious, as I mentioned at the start of the video of the mini fight they had. The only reason Okubo really got hit with a cold, as he wasn't serious whatsoever, and as I mentioned, I saw it as a sign of respect, wanting Cosmo to continue fighting as he already earned up the wins and he wanted to keep fighting. That's my idea of that. But I think 7 out of 10 times Okubo wins the fight in the Ashura time span. Now I'll talk about Omega. As mentioned, the biggest factor that will increase the odds of Cosmo winning this fight is his striking ability. As shown with the one Kengan match we saw at chapter 1 and 2 or whatever it was in Omega, Cosmo was able to defeat another Kengan fighter with a few kicks and blows, with them showing to have immense power, and that is what he's been working on over the last 2 years. So with that in mind, you need to think about how Okubo has improved. We haven't seen any training, but it can be assumed that he has improved over the last 2 years after his defeat against the Fang. We'll need to fully understand how much he's improved when he gets his fight in the Purgatory tournament. So I may do a video redoing this Ashura versus Omega battle once you get his full power. But as a whole, as it sits now, I think it's about a 50-50 chance of either way for Omega if those two were to fight. Cosmo has the insane strangles, improved a lot over the 2 years, being considered a genius, with Okubo still being an over-round fighter, having a lot more experience still, even though Cosmo building up his experience, getting a lot more wins. But Okubo not really being that much of a Kengan fighter, with him being a more, how should I say it, a more regulated, real-like fighting, or sport-related fight, instead of the Kengan, which is like deathmatch kind of stuff. So with that, I'm going to give the win for Omega to Cosmo 6 out of 10 times, with just how much more experience Cosmo would have got in the Kengan matches, and how akin Cosmo is to the Kengan matches, rather than Okyo being more akin to more mainstream fighting stuff. So that's it for today's What If battle. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Who do you think will win in Ashura, Okubo, or Cosmo? And for Omega, let me know if you agree with me, disagree with me. I'd love to see what you have to say down in the comments. Join the Discord, subscribe, and that's it, guys. Peace.